watching this news with America. Fair use copyright. Fair use copyright. This is Douglas McGregor on Costarando Calm Amor. This video came out 15 hours ago. The name of it is Netanyahu Panic and Fled, Abandoning People. Douglas McGregor. Pretty interesting from a military man perspective.
So what happens if they keep bombing Israel? What happens if their capabilities don't get eroded and the US are and they keep bombing Israel to ensure it never happens again? What could Israel do next?
It presupposes that we can disengage. See, I don't think Mr. Trump has had this conversation with Mr. Netanyahu, because without us, Israel's going to have a tough time surviving. This is a world-changing event in the Gulf. Sykes-Picot is over. Everyone's had it. And the Muslim people who live in all of these countries have had it, even if they're elites who are wealthy and enjoying the good life don't necessarily agree with them. The truth is the vast majority of Muslims, Arab, Turks, and Persians have had it. So the old Sykes-Picot arrangement is dead. So what's going to happen? I don't think we can just arbitrarily disengage. We're going to have to come to terms of some kind. And I think we know what those terms are. Iran is going to say, America out of the Gulf. And I don't think that the people that are living in the Gulf, by the time this happens, will object to that, because they now know we cannot protect them. Have you been protected by the United States Armed Forces? No, we can't do it. We cannot protect them. We can't even protect Israel, although we're doubling down on trying to do that with everything that we've got. By the way, if you're in the GCC, you're watching where all the missiles are going, where all the radars are going, and the assistance. It's all going to Israel. It's not going to them. So, what are we going to say? Are we going to say no? We're going to stay in Israel, or excuse me, we're going to stay in the Gulf in perpetuity, and you just keep on bombing? I don't think so. Remember, there is this entity out there called the American people, the American electorate. They're not interested. They don't want to stay there. They don't buy into this. What about the rest of the world? I mean, even if everything stopped right now, how long would it take to get the oil back online?
Yeah, it's a very good point. Very important.
I mean, this is going to take a long time. We've done in many cases not just months of damage, but years of damage to our friends and to the Iranians. So I think we're going to have to face something. We're going to get a term like that, get out of the Gulf. So who's going to preserve access to the Persian Gulf? Well, the United States Navy hasn't done that. Do you think the United States Navy is going to sail into the Gulf right now with precision-guided missiles and drones and everything else? They'd be foolish and stupid to do so. Every time it looks like they're threatened, what do we do with the Navy? We sail away, hopefully out of range. I mean, naval forces are vulnerable. We're not stupid. We know that. So how do you handle the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz? I think you eventually have to settle on an international treaty that is guaranteed by China and Russia and India and Japan and Korea and the United States. In other words, we all agree that this is an international waterway. No one can block it. No one will block it. Eventually, we'll have to do something like that. So what else are we going to have to do? What about Mr. Netanyahu and his government? Is Iran going to stop fighting just because we tell them we don't want to fight anymore? Or are they going to say, we're not going to live with an Israel that's governed by this man Netanyahu and his party? We want regime change in Israel. What are we going to do about that? I mean, listen, this is where we're headed right now, Mario. People need to understand this, because it's as we say in America, put up or shut up. Either you commit all the military power of the United States against Iran and its current position in the Persian Gulf, and that includes the use of ground forces, or get out. I think we're going to shut up. Now, here's the thing we haven't talked about. That's a nuclear weapon. We're not going to use a nuclear weapon. I can tell you a lot of things about President Trump. He's not going to do that. He is justifiably opposed to that. He sees that as the worst thing that could happen. And he's right, it is. Because once you use it, it normalizes the use of the weapon. The Russians, the Chinese, the Pakistanis, the Indians, all of the nuclear powers will not respond positively to that development. That could have terrible consequences for Israel. Terrible consequences. They're the ones that are most likely to turn to the use of the nuclear weapon, not us. And my concern from the very beginning, and still is, that Mr. Netanyahu has more authority over us than President Trump has over him and Israel. And that's because the Congress and the White House and the financial sector and media are all ultimately tied to him. The Zionist billionaires that support him, bankroll him, are going to keep him in a position of power over us if we allow it. And Mr. Trump is in office because of them. And there are people on the Hill that are there because of them. So how do you disengage from this war, excuse me, without risking a serious breach with Israel? And what that could mean here inside the United States for the political leader who does that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question. But I don't see any evidence that the Iranians are going to change their views and their demands. If anything, this war and the damage we've done has reinforced it and stiffened their spines to the point where they will not bow.
Ironically, as while we're speaking, there's a barrage of 100 rockets, according to Israeli outlets, fired by Hezbollah. I remember the first time we chatted, it was during the war between Israel and Hezbollah. We met in Washington, and we're talking about Hezbollah being completely destroyed back then. Well, they just fired 100 rockets now while you're speaking. And that comes after I got the alert of an attack on the UAE. Now, the FBI also warned, according to ABC, that Iran could retaliate by launching drones to the West Coast. Not sure how much truth there is to this or whether that's within their capabilities militarily.
I don't think
maybe
so.
Actually,
I don't think so, because I think the Iranians know that the American people are not necessarily supportive of this war. And if you know that, why would you provoke them and cause casualties and injuries to us in the United States? So I don't think so.
we're talking about Israel using a nuclear weapon, the whole Samson protocol, as a way to keep, to maintain their survival. But there's also fears that now Iran is more driven than ever to develop their own nuclear weapon. The leader that had a fatwa against developing nuclear weapons is dead. His son, who lost his, Mujtaba lost his father, his mother, his wife, his son, his niece, his, I think, brother-in-law, his multiple family members that he lost. Plus, he was injured in this attack. Plus, he was already considered more radical or more critical of the US before all this happened. And now he's the new supreme leader. Wouldn't Iran be more committed to develop a nuclear weapon now as the only possible deterrence from this happening again? And then wouldn't you have, first, is that a scenario that's possible? Wouldn't that make the Middle East even more dangerous? Because now Saudi would want one, and then the dominoes will start falling with other countries want to arm up?
I think the lesson of this war is very important. And that is that if you do not have a nuclear weapon, you are always vulnerable to attack by the United States of America. That if the America doesn't like your country, doesn't like your regime, doesn't like your society, and feels that it wants something different, then you can be invaded and destroyed. Now, you can't invade Iran at this point. That's nonsense. You just look at the 1,000 miles from one end of Iran to the other. Look at the terrible terrain that you'd have to cross. That's not going to happen. But I think everybody is now going to turn around and think twice before they do not invest in a nuclear weapon. I think the tendency will be to do that. And I agree with you. I think there are probably voices in Iran who are now saying, damn it, this would not have happened to us had we had nuclear weapons. But that's a question they have to address. I mean, personally, I hate the whole idea of nuclear weapons and always have. I mean, this Stalin is not one of my favorite people. He's probably the worst criminal in the world, right behind Mao and just above Hitler. And Stalin is responsible for millions and millions of his own countrymen being killed and others. But Stalin was right about nuclear weapons. After it was used, he said, yes, nuclear weapons are political weapons. They're not military weapons because they destroy everything. There's no real military value to them, but they are politically useful insofar as they guarantee your territorial integrity. And Stalin was right.
Just take classes, take charge. Start your comeback today at PurdueGlobal.edu.
Hello, what you making? The world's yours for the taking. Everything you touch, yeah, you color it in. Build your own fantasy, feeling anti-gravity. Nothing holds you down, you're floating.
You love your land, and you have plans for it. During Kubota Orange Days, you'll love it.
There's another report that came out yesterday, multiple reports. I'm going to play the video in the meantime of the barrage rockets that's flying towards Israel, just flew towards Israel just now from Hezbollah, which were meant to be completely eradicated. You can see the barrage there. There's reports from initially CBS and then CNN, and today ABC put out a report that Iran began mining the Strait of Hormuz. Now, for people that are not keeping close track of this, there's multiple ways for Iran. You could remove the video. There's multiple ways for Iran to close the strait. They could do it just with drones and missiles, which is sufficient, really. And they would allow just the Chinese ships and Iranian cargo ships or cargo ships heading to China to pass through. Then they've got their sea drones as a way to target the ships. Now, how capable they are, it depends who you ask. They've got the diesel submarines as well, a handful of them, I think a couple of dozen, about 30 of them. And then the most extreme card that Iran could play, and something they've threatened multiple times in the last 2 decades, and that's mining the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that's pretty significant because that essentially makes it impossible for any cargo ship to go through. And for a long time, demining, I don't know how capable.
Mario, do we know if that's true?
Depends who you want to believe. CNN, CBS, ABC said yes. Macron said he has no evidence, about 2 hours ago, he has no evidence that has happened. And experts and analysts I've spoken to, and I agree with that analysis, is that there's no point in doing that because the strait is already closed. So what's the point of mining it? Unless they put maybe